If you're looking to come to Finland to either study or to build a successful career, there are a bunch of things that you need to know about Finnish people before you move here. So in this video we will go through all of the most important things that you need to know about Finnish people before moving to Finland. What's up guys and welcome back to the channel, it's Oliver here, and also welcome to the University of Helsinki Viikki campus. Let's get right into it. The first thing that you need to know about Finns is that we like to get right into business, pun intended. So I'm sure that if you have watched any videos about Finns or about the Finnish culture, you have heard people say, me included, that we Finns are not necessarily that good in small talk. So while that is true to some extent, one of the reasons why people actually think that is actually not about our ability to converse, but rather because we like to get right into the topic. So we Finns really value our time as well as yours, and it is a sign of respect towards the opposite party not to waste their time on nonsense unless we are prepared to have a lingering discussion about whatever. For example, if you're going to a literal business meeting or to say a job interview, it is quite common that the second that you sit down, it's all about business. I've noticed that some international students and expats sometimes get a bit confused about this, and I think this is just a good thing to keep in mind, especially if you are a type of a person who likes to start a meeting with chatting about your week or about your kids. Anyways, the second thing that you need to know about Finnish people is that it's actually not true that we would be somehow antisocial or something like that. A lot of times when watching videos or reading about Finnish people on blogs, you get the sense that we are super introverted to the point where we are almost antisocial by nature. So while we Finns might seem a bit introverted, especially for those who come from cultures where people are very socially active, the best way to explain the Finnish anti-sociability is that we do not necessarily like to make the initiative. So as an example, there was actually this super funny story that an American lecturer told us in business school as a way to wake us Finns up about being more proactive. So some years ago, one of the big Finnish business schools held this networking event for their students where they had invited a lot of very highly regarded business managers. One of the panelists was the CEO of Nokia, one of the biggest and most well-known companies in all of Finland. After the panel, the speakers would then go into the crowd, grab a drink and be open for discussions and to network with the students. So what happened was that the CEO of Nokia, who is used to being absolutely surrounded by other business people and members of the press and so on, was not approached by a single student during the entire networking part of the event, and he simply ended up leaving the event after having a drink or two on his own. So he was just waiting for someone to take the initiative and to approach him. So I think that this kind of summarizes the Finnish anti-sociability myth pretty well. It's not that we do not want to talk to people, because everyone in the event would have killed to have a chat with the CEO of Nokia, but rather no one wanted to feel like they were bothering this important person even while he was there specifically for that reason. So people just felt that them going to talk to him out of the blue would be rude or wasteful of his time or something like this. So anyways, we Finns are not antisocial or really even that introverted in the end. On the opposite, we are actually quite sociable after we just get into a conversation. So a simple trick to get us to open is for you to be proactive towards us instead of waiting for us to start a conversation with you. Talking about living in Finland, if you're looking to come to study your bachelor's or master's degree in the Finnish capital region, I really recommend that you check out the student apartments from today's sponsor, which is HOAS. HOAS, or the Foundation for Student Housing in the Helsinki region, is a non-profit foundation and also the biggest student apartment provider in the capital region. They rent, build and maintain over 10,000 student apartments in the Helsinki metropolitan area, and I've personally been living in their apartments throughout my studies. What is really cool about HOAS is that their apartments are not only super affordable, but they are also really well located when it comes to commuting to different campuses in the capital region. A great example of this are actually these HOAS apartment buildings right behind me, which are located literally 50 meters away from the University of Helsinki Viikki campus building. Anyways, more information about HOAS and all of their apartments through the links in the description box below. Anyways, the next thing that you should really take into account is that we Finns tend to be very modest and we very rarely oversell ourselves. In fact, many Finns have a tendency to undersell themselves both in day-to-day context as well as in business situations. For example, when a Finnish person applies for a job and he or she is asked about their, let's say, technical skills, they will absolutely not oversell themselves, and when they say that they are proficient at something, you can absolutely trust that they really are. So this is partly because of a culture of honesty where many people feel like if if they try to oversell themselves, for example, in an interview, they would be lying, even if the point of an interview is to try and pitch yourself for the role. Regardless, this makes a lot of Finns super careful when it comes to selling their expertise on the job market. So the reason this is super important for international students and expats to understand is because since this is a norm in Finland, many recruiters and hiring managers are unfortunately used to people being a bit too honest about their skills, even to a level where you undercut yourself. So if you come from a culture where being super confident is more normal, say for example from the US, you really have to make sure that when you apply for a job in Finland, that you don't overreach too much and that you can really back up your claims about your skills. As a practical example, if you write in your CV that you are proficient in a certain coding language, you better make sure that this is true, because if the company tests your skills during the interview process and you aren't really up to the standard that you claimed in your CV, it's really not a good look. Alright, so I'm not sure if you were able to hear that. I had to move because actually they're building a new high-speed railway to the middle of the University of Helsinki Viikki campus, and it's making quite a bit of noise. Luckily, at the campus there's this lovely little park that I think is going to be an excellent secondary location. Anyways, the next thing you need to know about Finnish people is that if you want to succeed in Finland, you really need to respect punctuality. We, the Finnish people, are some of the most punctual people on the planet, and being late to a meeting or to a deadline is considered rude and disrespectful towards the other parties involved. Not only does this apply when meeting with a friend, but even more so when talking about a professional context. For example, if you set a business meeting at 5 o'clock, that means 5 sharp, not 10 past 5 or even 5 past 5. It's exactly at 5 o'clock. There is naturally a bit more flexibility here if you're meeting with a friend, but even so, if you know that you're going to be late for more than 5 minutes, it's really appreciated if you could call them or text them to let them know that you'll be there slightly after you agreed. Be late for more than 5 minutes and Finnish people automatically pull out their phone, checking for messages from you, wondering where you are. Also, going back to the business example, being late for a meeting by just a few minutes, even if you send a message or call about it, is still considered rude, because this automatically means that you did not respect the other party enough to reserve enough time for travel. Thus, a good general rule of thumb is whether we are talking about a job interview or a business meeting, it's better to be there a bit too early rather than risk being even slightly late. Also, another thing that's related to punctuality is that Finnish people really appreciate those who keep to their word and stick to the agreed schedules. Once again, this applies to everything from your day-to-day life to school and to your professional life. For example, if you agree with someone, for example, to send your draft of a school or work assignment at a certain time, make sure to stick to that timeline. The reason is that if you agree to send something to someone else at a certain date or time, it is highly likely that the other person will schedule their calendars based on that commonly agreed upon timeline. This means that being late can mess up their entire week, because they have to now reschedule everything else to get your shared tasks done. Most people have other things to do in addition to the things that you have agreed to do together, and most Finns especially do not appreciate that you being late stops them from doing the things that they want to do. So if you know that you will be late to a commonly agreed deadline, please make sure to let the other people know about this as soon as you become aware of the delay. This is because doing this early enough might just give the other parties the opportunity to reschedule their calendars around this changed timeline without huge issues. On the other hand, the further into the future you drag this, the worse you're going to look to the others. Moving on, the next thing that you should know about Finnish people is that we don't really like to talk about personal finances with people who we do not know well. Sure, of course people talk about finances and money in general, but we do not really like people asking us about our personal finances. This is in fact a really delicate topic for many Finns, and asking them about their income, how much they paid for their car, how much they have saved up, or for example in investments, can make them really uncomfortable. Of course, depending on the person, this can also apply at least to some extent to friends as well. Just as an example, I personally do not know how much money most of my best friends are making or how much money they have in investments and so on. It's just not my place to ask about this, even though I know these people really well. Again, I know that this might be a bit weird for some of you, but I think keeping this in mind will serve you well in the long run. Next, I recommend that you watch this video where I talk about the most important things that you need to know before you move to Finland. Thanks again for watching, guys, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.